Thank you very much. It's good to be back. My cat thanks you as well because I fed some treats to him. So, first things first. We're technically in part 3, despite us still doing some, I guess, some work. Some kind of busy work, right? So I want to make sure, add points, all 40, as an appreciation for all of you who've stuck around so far through the broadcast. Part 1, actually, Diadems and Derek were opening up some, they were opening up some packs of minis. And then in part 2, we were focusing on how to go about fleshing out NPCs according to the DMG, and we made 2 very interesting NPCs. Or rather, we refined them from the initial ideas we had when Lethality Complex and I were talking about the Ravnica setting for D&D. Now, I want to consult the DMG again. This is kind of a DMG week here on the channel. And I want to focus on creating dungeons. And specifically, we are going to be creating an Is It Boilerworks style dungeon. At least we're going to conceptualize it. Though I do have paint open, so we can maybe make some drawings and go over some basics. So, adventure environments. Let's go to chapter 5, Donjons, on page 99. Many D&D adventures revolve around a dungeon setting. Dungeons in D&D include great halls and tombs, subterranean monster lairs, labyrinths riddled with death traps, natural caverns extending for miles beneath the surface of the world, and ruined castles. Not every adventure takes place in a dungeon. A wilderness trek across the Desert of Desolation, or a harrowing journey into the jungles of the Isle of Dread, can be an exciting adventure in its own right. In the great outdoors, dragons wheel across the sky in search of prey, tribes of hobgoblins pour forth from their grim fortresses or wage war against their neighbors. Ogres plunder farmsteads for food, and monstrous spiders drop from web-shrouded canopies of trees. Within a dungeon, adventurers are constrained by walls and doors around them, but in the wilderness, adventurers can travel in almost any direction they please. Therein lies the key difference between dungeon and wilderness. It's much easier to predict where the adventuring party might go in the dungeon because the options are limited. Less so in the wilderness. Villages, towns, and cities are cradles of civilization in a dangerous world, but they too offer opportunities for adventure. Encounters with monsters might seem unlikely within a city's walls, but urban settings have their own villains and perils. Evil, after all, takes many forms, and urban settings aren't always the safe havens they seem to be. This chapter provides an overview of these. Okay, so we're going to focus on dungeons itself. Yeah, we're going to go with like a boiler works, steam pipes and vents and all that. DJ Delta goes on a trip through the plains. A giant wolf spider. Ooh, that just pops out. 6 and a 9. You have advantage. 9 plus 1 is 10. You overcome the giant wolf spider. For 75 EXP. Pneumonica, it's much easier to predict where the PCs will go in a dungeon, so says someone who never ran Tomb of Horrors. When you set out to create a dungeon, think about its distinctive qualities. For example, a dungeon that serves as a hobgoblin stronghold has a different quality from an ancient temple inhabited by Yuan-Ti. This section lays out a process for creating a dungeon and bringing it to life. Alright, dungeon location. Now, just like we did with our NPCs, we have a general idea of what we want. We want to go for Is It Boilerworks of some kind. That doesn't mean that we can't incorporate other random elements into it. For example, so here we'll put like name or theme. Is It Boilerworks? By the way, everything here should be at least 18-point font, so you will have an easier time of seeing it. And I hope, if you need the font larger than 18 point, let me know. Otherwise, I've been using this as the default because it looks like it on screen, on my monitor here, it looks like that is readable. But you all are on different devices, PCs, laptops, mobile devices. Let me know if you need the text to be larger. DJ, yeah, if you'd like. Actually, before the broadcast even, I had opened up a tab for some different artwork. If you have specific cards, you are definitely welcome to share them. But I wanted to bring up the artwork that we see here, just so we're getting an idea of what we could thematically expect as we go through, you know, as we're going through the dungeon, as we're seeing these, is it contraptions and steam vents and things along those lines. There's a weird, which would kind of be definitely not Jimmy. I'll believe you this time. Thank you for the follow. I guess we could treat that as an elemental or as a myrmidon. That because they're wearing armor. That could be interesting. Look up a Steam Core weird. We'll do that when we get there. Yeah, yeah. All right, so here is our location. We're gonna roll a percentile die and figure that out. Let's reset from our NPC rolls. Let's roll percentile. And again, by the way, thank you for that follow. 55 in a jungle. A steamy jungle of some kind. So the location of this in a jungle. Let's see. Let's put on our creative thinking caps. Ultimately, it will be in a proper Is It Boilerworks. So maybe because of what we were describing with the initial setting being kind of an overgrown place. Lethality, you said that you know, Godless Shrine is kind of like the focal point of the community. But because of the nature that this is taking place in a part of Ravnica's Undercity, the dungeon might start in... It might be Gruul. It could be Golgari, something along those lines. Somewhere in the Undercity, the outlet to a massive Is It Boilerworks vents into somewhere in the Undercity, an outlet to the massive Is It Boilerworks vents. Vented steam, creating a humid, hot, and humid environment. This causes tremendous plant growth as well, and could possibly be contested territory between the Gruul and Golgari. If we do this, So we're still going to have an Is It Boiler Works. It exists, and in fact, we're showing how it has an effect on part of the city block. Because of the effects of the exhaust from the boiler works is causing this urban jungle to occur. This could mean that our PCs have to actually navigate through contested territory where members of the Gruul clans and members of the Golgari... What's the name of the Golgari group? The Golgari composters or farmers or something? These two factions could very well be fighting. And so your first challenge to overcome is to even get into the dungeon. Oh, the Golgari Swarm, that's right. Thank you, DJ. And so you have these clans versus the Swarm that are fighting, and our two anti-heroes have to make their way through this jungle area to get into the boiler works. Else they might get caught up in the gang warfare that's happening between the two. Now, just as when we make territories and maps on a standard week, let's throw in something exotic as well. And then we rolled a 2, so this is around a geyser. So, the boiler works can only be entered at a time when boiling hot water isn't being jettisoned out of the main vent. This can cause a timer effect and will have the PCs need to survive for X amount of time before they can access this dungeon. So not only then is there a jungle area that is contested by other clans who may let them go. Maybe they're diplomatic. Maybe they're stealthy. Maybe they want to fight their way through of all the monsters and humanoids that are there. You see how we're providing several different ways for different... If we were to just make this a dungeon and throw it out there for all of you, you could replace Is It Boiler Works with whatever else you want. You're providing, as a DM, several ways for different parties of different configurations to approach the situation. And so you're presenting a challenge, and with this, the fact that it's a geyser that is normally like spewing boiling hot water, well, if they have a magical or I guess a mundane way of getting into a boiling geyser, they can do so. Or otherwise, they're going to have to wait and do sort of like Metal Gear Solid 3 style survival and hiding and tactics until the water ceases boiling out of the vent, and they can finally go in. I mean, they're still going to have to wear some protective shoes or something. This will take planning, because a pipe that carries boiling water is going to be boiling hot still. Unless, I don't know, is it magic makes it not hot? Oh, I don't want to get into the minutia of it, DJ, because we can come up with any arbitrary amount of time. I want to get the basics out there so that we can at least get a concept for what we want to do, and then we can continue to refine the concept later. Let's challenge ourselves. We know this is an Is It Boiler Works, but who planned it? It had to have been planned and built specifically by someone to do something other than just dump boiling water out into the Undercity. causing a big natural sauna area. No, it's fine, DJ. You don't need to apologize. These are things to think about. I just don't think we need to focus on the minutia of the timing right now. 8. Dwarves. Okay. Dwarves are actually kind of rare in Magic. So therefore, maybe dwarves actually did create this Boiler Works. Or is there an equivalent? Is there an equivalent to dwarves that you think would have been the ones to design and implement this Boiler Work? So we can use dwarf as a prompt. I know there's Loxodons. Loxodons are like Ravnican dwarves. They get stone cunning and they live long lives and they're very pragmatic and etc. Are you sure Vidalkin wouldn't have been the Mind Flayer role on the chart? But they are Scottish. Well, Mind Flayers only have a 5% chance to dwarves with 20%. So, what is the name of our Vidalkin creator? And our NPC... Yeah, that does make sense, lethality. $16. Neutral evil Vidalkin cleric. Who worships... Let's roll a d20. 8. Elemental Fire Cult. There we go. So I guess this would be light. Dungeon purpose. Let's roll a d20. 1. Its purpose is a death trap. The Vidalkin want to see who can survive. Is there something fire can't burn? And if so, we're going to run it through the system. Right? So it exists, and maybe that's why the Gruul and the Golgari maybe even tried to fight over the Boiler Works, but too many of them died. And Hakora, thank you very much for your host. Welcome to you and all those who came over with you. And so many died, and they just want the area that's affected by the steam and the heat, because it's promoting plant growth and animal growth and etc. So they're leaving this death trap alone. But maybe one day, right? Vidalicans have long lives. Maybe one day someone will come through that death trap. And if they do, they will be worthy of having knowledge imparted to them. For Chief Engineer. Can I find a better picture? Okay, oh yeah, so he's presiding over some mechanical stuff here. Ah, there we go. So he's standing over some people who are kind of toiling away here. Oh, that's Grand Architect. And he has 4 arms. Man, why is it hard to get a big picture of a magic card? Oh, I thought there was something like there's the soul, right? There's the soul of Ravnica. 'Cause I was thinking that there was some sort of a big spirit of the Guild Pact or something like that. I could have sworn there was something. So yeah, because there's the different souls that came out of different planes, and there was this soul of Ravnica that existed. I knew it, I knew it, I knew it, I knew it. Okay, so yeah, we can use this card as inspiration. This dungeon is built to eliminate any creature that dares to enter it. A death trap might guard treasure of an insane wizard, or might be designed to lure adventurers to their demise for some nefarious purpose, such as to feed souls to a lich's phylactery. We were talking about Tomb of Horrors, weren't we? Yeah? Tomb of Horrors, anyone? Going once, going twice. And now, the dungeon history is a d20 roll. 19. It has been overrun by planar creatures. Well, this was built in worship or in adoration of fire elementals, so it could be overrun with mephits, elementals, myrmidons, magmins, salamanders. There's others. Jeez. Why am I not thinking of them, though? But anyway, you get the idea. After a dungeon's creators depart, anyone or anything might move in. Intelligent monsters, mindless dungeon scavengers, predators, and prey alike can be drawn to dungeons. The monsters in a dungeon are more than a collection of random creatures that happen to live near one another. Fungi, vermin, scavengers, and predators can coexist in a complex ecology alongside intelligent creatures who share living space through elaborate combinations of domination, negotiation, and bloodshed. Characters might be able to sneak into a dungeon, ally with one faction, or play factions against each other to reduce the threat of the more powerful monsters. For example, in a dungeon inhabited by mind flayers and their goblinoid thralls, the adventurers might try to incite the goblins, hobgoblins, and bugbears to revolt against their illithid masters. Dungeon factions. A dungeon is sometimes dominated by a single group of intelligent humanoids, whether a tribe of orcs that have taken over a cavern complex, or a gang of trolls inhabiting an above-ground ruin. Other times, particularly in larger dungeons, multiple groups of creatures share space and compete for resources. For example, orcs that dwell in the mines of a ruined dwarf citadel might skirmish constantly against the hobgoblins that hold the citadel's upper tiers. Mind flayers that have established a colony in the lowest levels of the mines could manipulate and dominate key hobgoblins in an attempt to wipe out the orcs. And all the while, a hidden cell of drow scouts watches and plots to slay the mind flayers, then enslave whatever creatures are left. It's easy to think of a dungeon as a collection of encounters, with the adventurers kicking down door after door and killing whatever lies beyond. Heh. But the ebb and flow of power between groups in a dungeon provides plenty of opportunities for more subtle interaction. Dungeon denizens are used to striking unlikely alliances, and adventurers are a wild card that canny monsters seek to exploit. Intelligent creatures in a dungeon have goals, whether as simple as short-term survival or as ambitious as claiming the entire dungeon in the first step of founding an empire. Such creatures might approach adventurers with an offer of alliance, hoping to prevent the characters from laying waste to their lair and to secure aid against their enemies. Bring the NPC leaders of such groups to life as described in Chapter 4, fleshing out their personalities, etc., so forth. There is a dungeon ecology. Things to think about, what grows there, what lives there, what eats there, and poops there, and sleeps there, and everything. Where are they getting air and water and other resources that are necessary? Encounter difficulty. You might be inclined to increase the encounter difficulty as the adventurers descend deeper into the dungeon, as a way to keep the dungeon challenging as the characters gain levels or to ratchet up the tension. However, this approach can turn the dungeon into a grind. A better approach is to include encounters of varying difficulty throughout. The contrast between easy and hard encounters, as well as simple and complex encounters, encourages characters to vary their tactics and keeps the encounters from seeming too similar. And then we have mapping a dungeon and some advice in there. Let me catch up in chat. Hakora, my remaining brain cell is here lurking. That's fine, Hakora. Thank you for the host and for all you and others to come over. Test against fire, planar creatures. You mean planeswalker? Lethality complex. It's probably got some frostburn weirds in there if the Izzet have decided to try populating it with things to resist the fire. And I see we are in some of my favorite areas of the DMG. Hey, memory lapse. The goblins are revolting, had to be said. Yeah, they are revolting, aren't they? DJ, yeah, but Steam Core and Frostburn Weirds would be the best test subjects. Maybe the Frostburn Weirds that got melted turned into Steam Core ones. C'est possible? C'est possible. Asymmetrical rooms and map layouts make a dungeon less predictable. Think in 3 dimensions. Stairs, ramps, platforms, ledges, balconies, pits, and other changes of elevation make a dungeon more interesting and make combat encounters in those areas more challenging. Give the dungeon some wear and tear. Unless you want to stress that the dungeon's builders were extraordinarily skillful, collapsed passages can be commonplace, etc. so forth. Incorporate natural features, even in a constructed dungeon. An underground stream might run through the middle of a dwarven stronghold, causing variation. Yep. Add multiple entrances and exits. Nothing gives the players a stronger sense of making real decisions than having multiple... Well, maybe not in this particular case. Add secret doors and secret rooms to reward players who take the time to search for them. Yes. If you need help creating a dungeon map from scratch, see Appendix A. And it goes on. I'm not going to read everything here about looking, what are the walls and the doors and secret doors and such. Portcullises or portculli, I suppose. Light and dark. Air quality. Something to consider, right? If we want to blast people with steam, are we facing exhaustion? Possibly. Are we facing sorry, one second here. Okay. You know, the very air itself, temperature, can be a big hazard. You don't just have to try and cut people's heads off with whirring blades or blow them up with a fireball trap in a place like this. In fact, there could be a time limit of some kind as well. Unless they have some sort of magical aid or very specific mundane aid or something like that, they can only really exist for so long inside the dungeon before they start suffering consequences. Yes, portcullis, fluffy sheep. And so these are hazards. And here's some examples. Webs, mold, slimes. And it'll talk about traps as well. Well, at least a little bit later. Here's our hazards. Hey, you want to come up and see everyone? Come on. Yeah, there we go. Here's a dungeon inhabitant. Hi, bud. I swear I'm still here. You don't have to send help yet. Their first encounter is a steam cat. All he asks is for all the pets, every pet in the world, on his head. Or you must fetch the smallest box into which he can fit, but he won't tell you what it is. You have to provide it yourself. Thank you. Yes, I've been working on this cat beard for some time. Show everyone your pretty face. Look at that. Oh, look how pretty he is. There we go. That's the good stuff, isn't it? Me, 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 me. Me, 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 me. Me, 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 me. It's fine, DJ. Thank you. Blue is the color of knowledge, understanding, illusions, and trickery. Red is the color of chaos and anarchy. Not many traps, aye? There may not necessarily have to be many traps. It could be mostly hazards and monsters. There might be one or two traps here or there, or if not a trap, then maybe some sort of puzzle they have to figure out. And a puzzle that has a consequence if it's interacted with and not beaten. But those will be something for you to consider as the DM. Red is more raw motion, so that would be, a big, like a flame jet trap, or a delayed blast fireball that triggers when someone says a keyword in that room, and the door, like written on the door, it just says what, and so one adventurer goes to the other and says, would you look at this? And the other says, look at what? And then that's the trigger of the fireball mechanism. I mean, really, if you think about what we're doing, everyone, we're making a Mario Maker level, right? We have an Izzet boiler work. There's plenty of fire. So this is probably going to take place in a dungeon with lava. So really what you should just do is load up Mario Maker if you have it. And that's how we're going to make our dungeon. Oh, I think I went a little too far. All right. Now we're going to go to the donjon area. Right? We have some considerations for the dungeon. We have our theme. And I want to show you how you can interact with the dungeon in order to build on it. Very literally build on it. Although, if I can, I would like to actually have Where's the area on... Because there's not a lot of traps in the DMG. Because there doesn't really have to be. Okay, it's on 120. Even though they're commonplace, when you're making a trap in 5th edition, come up with something you think is cool or appropriate. And honestly, bing, 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 just use this chart. You don't have to have someone else give you a bunch of stats or say, oh, really? A boulder is only for like level 3 adventurers, but I really want to squish my level 12s. Squish your level 12s. Just scale it up. Scale your traps or come up with devious stuff. They give you some suggestions in the DMG, but really you pop over to page 120 here, and or 121, I'm sorry, and do you want how dangerous do you want it to be? Here's your save. Here's your recommended save DC, and here's your attack bonus. And then the damage by the damage severity by level. If you want a deadly trap for a 1st to 4th level character, it will deal 4d10 damage. Yeah, trap implies intent and engineering. So I guess what a hidden hazard could be, Pneumonica, is they remove a boilerplate and flames just fill the room. It wasn't necessarily meant to happen, but it happened because the little plate or the firewall between the PCs and the fire in the other room was removed. So that may not have been intended. It may not have necessarily been purposeful or an intended way to char the people going through this heckish maze. So something like that might be more of a hidden hazard. Or poison gas could be a trap. It could also be a hidden hazard. You say a timer that would blast hot water down the main corridors repeatedly. Maybe a clear timer that goes off every X amount of time. Maybe a clear timer that they could see for the workers. If any exist. Yeah, bodies and biomass and whatever could be ejected out with the steam or this geyser. That's true. So the dungeon gets flushed every so often. There could be safe rooms or break rooms or something along those lines that don't get flushed. There may still be dead bodies in there, but those people could still be fertilizing the jungle, which was serving as the entrance to this Izzet Boiler Works. So if you wanted to is combine traps and hazards while using things like combination of magical effects and objects to create illusions and trickery. Well, I mean, we can get into depth, the layers and detail and intrigue on top of mystery wrapped in an enigma with a bow of what? Oh, I set off the trap. That's right, put a hazard in a trap. So here are some various suggestions for traps, which we can take into consideration. But these are details I don't want to put into the dungeon just yet, because I want to spur on information. Hey, here's one portcullis, and if there was a second one, we would have 2 portculli. But I want to go over the content of the DMG and get our brains stirring thematically and conceptually. And we can even draw out some rooms here. But I don't want to go on too long and make it entirely super detailed. Anything super detailed right now. We can do some more reforming when we come back tomorrow for Saturday. And we're going into a little bit more depth of the campaign and making the outline and so forth. All right, where's the page I need? I need starting area on 290. Hashtag logic and hashtag reusing past content. Memory, I gave one the other day, meant to be a very rare trap, quicksand at the bottom of a pitfall trap. Warning, that trap is designed to kill. I imagine so. You know, the expression goes, it's not the fall that kills you, it's the sudden stop at the end. Well, in this case, it's not the fall that kills you, it's the very slow ending to it that will. All right, now that we are on page 290 in the DMG, you can see you can randomly generate everything you want about this dungeon. If you don't have something in your noggin about what it would look like, or you want the challenge of subjecting yourself to pure randomness, you need inspiration here and there. Starting on 290, you are going to find amazing prompts at building a dungeon, and and maybe even populating it too. But we can get to that point. Well, here's your starting area. Is a rectangle that's 20 by 40 feet, passage on each wall. We are beginning kind of an analog procedurally generated dungeon. We are the roguelikes. And speaking of which, Fluffy Sheep, you were using Incarnate earlier, weren't you? I thought I saw something about that. Or at least how you thought that it wasn't really optimal. Well, with how deep the pitfall trap can be, how fast the players... Well, yeah, they reach terminal velocity. So you can generate passages of various widths. And really at this point, it's up to you. Here you have a prompt, right? You have a theme. Keep something in mind. Is it Boilerworks? And let's take a look at some Is It Boilerworks, right? In fact, there is It Boilerworks as a land. You're probably going to be crawling, at maybe even initially, through the tubes before you even get into rooms that have more tubes and more things that are, you know, or even people or creatures. So you can create areas here that are obscured by steam and fog. There's plenty of opportunities for hazards and traps. There's lots of monsters that can live here, especially planar ones. Valves. You were complaining about it. Okay. So you can actually, maybe you want to put in a part in, if any of you played Silent Hill 2, there is a part in that game where you can influence the room behind you by manipulating a little cube in front of you. And as you turn the cube, the room behind you also turns and changes in several ways. So you might have something like the infamous water temple puzzle in Link to the Past or Ocarina of Time, I guess, or of Majora's Mask too. You can have a 3D puzzle, right, where you're manipulating valves and you have to go through passages and things like this. Again, you're making a Mario Maker level. Like, really, that's a good inspiration for what you have going on here. Look at some super expert dungeon-themed Mario Maker level. And we have some stuff happening. Flash did exist, huh? Yeah, you might even have some creatures that don't stick around and fight. They just like come in and zap you and then they're gone. Almost treated like a trap. Abueros de Vapor from Retorno a Ravnica. Oh, that's getting into Theros stuff. There's steam vents. There could be generators. Maybe you have to bring power or steam or both to certain aspects of the dungeon before you can continue. You can do so much with this. And keep in mind, this was purposely meant to be a death trap, so have fun with it. If you do, I'm going to waggle my finger. Well, I'm not going to tell you ultimately how to DM. I would make sure that you as a DM hint, tell, imply, warn, or otherwise let your players have the ability to find out that this place is a death trap. You know, maybe while they're surviving in the jungle outside, that's a good time for them to overhear one or more of the factions agreeing that no one wants to go in there because everyone who has died horribly. You know, they come out as steamed, wrinkled prunes or something like that. And that could let your PCs prepare through alchemical or magical means, through equipment, investigation, things along those lines. I would recommend, if you're going to run a death trap that is lethal, that does require thought, riddles and puzzles and interactions and whatnot, that you are willing to prepare your players for that through some context clues. Now, if your players don't pay attention and they're like, oh, whatever, we've run dungeons before, there's probably going to be like a dumb goblin and we're going to kick him and take his treasure and do... All right, sure. Sure, it's a goblin dungeon. Have fun. And then, you know, 3 rooms in, they avoid the mechanic, or they don't avoid the mechanics. They didn't pay attention to the mechanics, and they just, I don't know, they could get murked. But realize something like that could possibly end your campaign as you had been running it. Does that mean you should pull punches? Maybe not necessarily. But it is going to be deadly. It is going to challenge. Kind of seems like the Izzets want to complete the Infinity Gauntlet. Boiled bodies of bones. Planar monsters could... If we're putting Eldrazi in here, DJ, that's... I think that's going to be a broader goal. Not that this campaign couldn't dovetail into something like that. But the Eldrazi are very much their own threat. What I would recommend, at least in this instance, DJ, keep it focused to the theme of the dungeon. Right? We went through, there's a couple one-sentence explanations here of, you know, the overall theme is it Boiler Works? It was meant to do something, in this case, to explore the plane of fire and the things that live there, or even the people. And ultimately, at the end, it's supposed to be a big test of different subjects. Who can survive? Who can make it? And so, if you do run something, and could the Eldrazi fit in? Possibly. Now, they exist, even if a lot of people don't want them to. But they exist. But if you put it in there, you have to be careful because your PCs are in kind of a fight or flight survival mode right now. And if they're already expecting puzzles and challenges. They've been facing these fire elementals and these steam weirds and stuff like that. If you throw the Eldrazi in as a storyteller, it could be big and dramatic, and they might go, what? Especially if your PCs have played Magic the Gathering before. If not, they're going to be like, oh, okay, I don't know, I don't care, I just want to survive. But you could confuse the message of what's going on here and what it's trying to accomplish. Well, you know, you said you were just joking. I'm not trying to like dig on you and say, oh well, what are you saying, DJ Delta? Suddenly everything that you've contributed to before is irrelevant. No, that's not the case at all. It was a good prompt, and I do want to make sure that since we're talking broadly about this stuff, it is brought up. Because once we get thinking, we often can have trouble stopping. Oh, this and this and this leads to this and that leads to that, and wouldn't it be cool if this thing was in there, and suddenly though that thing, it's an is it thing. It is an is it thing, but is it necessary? Is it confusing? Is it confusing? Is it necessary? Will they see a goblin flectomancer? This is the question that we need to know. Wouldn't that be something to meet one of these goblins? Okay. So yeah, starting area, passage with doors, door types, stairs, chambers. You can randomly generate as much as you want. Now there are different ways you can stock your dungeon that are thematic. For example, we have a dungeon that is a death trap. And so here, you can roll the generic stuff like passages, not that you can't trap a passage too. An antechamber or waiting room for spectators, a guard room fortified against intruders, a vault for holding important treasures, a room containing a puzzle that must be solved to bypass a trap or monster, a trap designed to kill or capture creatures, an observation room allowing guards or spectators to observe creatures moving through the dungeon. This is also a planar gate, right? Armory used by the portal's guardians, a chapel dedicated to the deity or related to the portal, a cistern providing water, a dining room even, something mundane, a planar junction where the gate to another plane once stood, a 25% chance of it being active. And if you think there's a couple areas that fit something else, that's perfectly fine. This could also presumably have aspects of a temple or shrine. You can put in some general chambers that might exist. The DMG has you covered. It has you covered. Don't be afraid to this is a death trap dungeon, but it has other elements to it. Not everything has to kill you, though it probably will try in some form or fashion. Now, later, slowly, quickly, by poisons, by heat, by combat, something. And look at this, the current state of the chamber. So not only are you generating the passages, doors, and the chambers, but is the furniture wrecked but still present? And if so, what does that mean about that chamber? Cause and effect. What happens here? Offer your PCs clues as to who lived here if people don't anymore. What lives here currently? What purpose did this dungeon serve, or this particular room of it? Chamber contents, monster motivations. I mean, look, it's here. I've expressed my affection for the DMG many times so far. In this broadcast, let alone on others where we've invoked it. Obstacles, trap effects. So again, you use that one reference chart. Fire shoots out from the wall. It's a random trap and you scale it. A glyph of warding. A huge wheeled statue rolls down the corridor. A pendulum, either bladed or weighted as a maul, swings across the room or hall. A hidden pit floods with acid or fire. Steel or stone jaws restrain a character. Walls slide together. you can get into the minutia with these parts of the DMG. Tricks, treasures, noises. How detailed do you want to get? So not only do you have an observation room, it has broken furniture inside of it, and then when we are making our percentile roll here, 53, there's a knocking sound that comes from inside of it. Well, that's probably because there's a bunch of boilers, and when you heat a boiler up, it can make a knocking sound. If any of you have a boiler heater at home, I think you'll know what I'm talking about. What's the air like in this chamber? Are there odors present? General feed. Again, these are things to think about. Do you need things to the umpteenth level in every room? Not necessarily. But you want inspiration. It is here. And it is here in spades. Arctic, desert, forest, coastal, grasslands, hills, and mountains. Well, I guess we could reference whatever we really want. We know that there's going to be a lot of outsiders, right? A lot of planar stuff going on. Elementals. Underdark, urban, underwater. There we go. So, I mean, I had this open just in case, but you get the idea. If you had your main entrance and it was here, and then you randomly rolled that there's a passage, but it actually, kind of like went off to it went off this way, but there's another door that was here that led off to another passage, like so. But this passage only had a regular door, and that led to another room, but this one was really long. And then this had a... So that kind of came down like this. And then there was actually 2 choices. Whoa, crazy. Why are we giving our players so many choices? Because we're awesome DMs, and that's what we do. And so this one turned into a circular room that did something. And then this one was another room like so, and you could build your dungeon, make all the notes you want. Now, how many traps do you include? How many monsters do you include? That's up to you. Do you want to try and murder your PCs? Do you just want to make it difficult? Do you not want any combat, but you would rather focus on riddles and traps and puzzles and environmental hazards instead as the enemies? You can do that as well. You can kill players through 6 levels of exhaustion. I mean, look, in Magic, you only need 10 poison counters. You can have, 200 life, and it only takes 10 poison counters to bring you down. So you could be measuring progress. Well, that'd be dangerous, because exhaustion provides really harsh mechanical effects. But that could be a countdown timer. If there's not another one of when is the next steam vent going to blow, or... what do I do? Where do I go from here? How beat up am I? And you can always put in a couple safe rooms so that they can either sleep or they can take a short rest without having to worry about being boiled alive. Oh yeah, there's probably water pipes. There might be water pools. I very much agree. I do very much agree. And we have amazing... we have amazing resources available to us, especially with this setting, because Magic does invoke so much art, and there's art direction, and there's lore concepts, and there's so much stuff that's happening. And by the way, Lethality Complex, I don't know if you're still around, but this is also, I guess, some private transportation. You could strap something like this to your back and sort of fly around. Hey, this is the Demir person, right, that we're talking about? The one who can always seemingly give, the one who can always seemingly, like, provide them with whatever they need? Well, that's cool. I like that stained glass. Isn't that something? All right, everyone. It's almost 4 a.m. I'm going to have to get going. I very much appreciate you sticking around as we're going through the NPC refinement process, the dungeon refinement process. Tomorrow, we don't really need to go over the party. We've already done that. So I think I'd like to add in a little bit more detail, or let's take our time and really make a fun campaign for our PCs. We can open up by talking about the world, and a little bit more. We'll refine more and more, and for sure we're gonna make a Ravnica based D&D campaign that is built with our NPCs and our PCs in mind, and our specific and is it Boilerworks dungeon. We'll go from there, but I think we'll make something that'd be a lot of fun. And you know what? If you want to test it out when this supplement drops in November, I'd love to hear on how it goes. Let's see who's on. Let's give a raid to someone. Let's say hi. Let's see who's on. Let's give a raid to someone. Let's say hi. Oh, we can go raid Captain Milne. So there are a couple people from our community. I can't raid everyone, but let me give a shout out. Or if you want to go and watch someone else in our own community here, Own Dog Games is playing a D&D 3.5 campaign. He plays a live tabletop every Friday. So for sure, we can check him out. I have rated him, and I haven't rated Captain Milne in a while, and I want to be fair. He is playing Overwatch. He is hilarious to talk to, very laid-back guy. And even if you're not a fan of Overwatch, he takes the time to read your comments and replies back to him. So I think we're going to raid him and go say hi, especially he has volunteered to help out on the side with some co-DM stuff for the Tuesday game. So I think that'd be a fun way to show a little bit of love for what he's willing to step up and contribute to us. Also, Jukebox Haiku is playing Left 4 Dead 2. She is just starting to play D&D. So if you want to check her out, she is playing Left 4 Dead 2, but she is becoming more aware of D&D. She's learning it. She made her very first character. So you can check out Jukebox Haiku or Own Dog Games, who's playing a 3.5 heads-up tabletop campaign. But let's go raid Captain Milne and say hi to him. And his very, very impressive beard. Okay, everyone? Raid Captain Milne. Yeah, Cameron. Well, heck, you can even go over and say hi and be like, hey, Maddie said you are new. I am too. It's good to meet a new fellow player. Say hi to the people who are broadcasting. Cameron, thank you very much for hanging out. I hope you had fun. Fluffy Sheep. It jumps over a fence. Fluffy Sheep, thanks for being here. And being a part. All of you, mwah, love you, and I'll see you tomorrow when we finish up Ravnica. Okay? Peace.